Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another video. My name is Caitlin. I'm so happy to have you here where I'm going to be chatting a little bit about weakness and feeling inadequate. I think it's something that we all experience at some point in our lives, and so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that today in hopes that this will encourage you, as it did encourage me when I was thinking about God's truth. Has anyone else ever gone to a job interview where they ask you your strengths and your weaknesses? I think most people don't like that question at all because we don't want to talk about our weaknesses, because when we do, we think that it's something that disqualifies us. It labels us as inadequate to do a certain thing or accomplish a role, whatever that is. When we think weakness, we think so not good. But what the scripture actually teaches is that in our weakness, God is made strong. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And so God actually says that when you are weak, my power is made known through you. And in that area where you feel inadequate, or the area that you may feel limited in, that is space, it is room for God to come in and make His power known. When we depend on God as our source, it's more about welcoming Him into that area that we feel weak in. Last week at church, one of my pastors said that if dependence is the goal, then weakness is our advantage. And so as we walk out our Christian lives, our goal is to depend and rely fully on God as our source. And in our weakness, it is actually to our advantage because it positions us to depend on Him to give us all of the things that we need. So I just wanted to share an example of something in my own life that I feel like has been an area of weakness. As someone who has always been more of the quiet person and the one that's okay with sitting back in the corner and just being behind the scenes of things and not exactly a born and natural leader, where I was more kept to myself. An area that I felt that I lacked in was communication. And I thought that that was just part of who I was. And that since that is something that I wasn't great at, I didn't need to talk to people. Like, talking to people is just not my strong suit. So I'm just gonna not do that. But then I realized that God is relational and that He wants to be in relationship with us, and as His children, He wants us to be in relationship with one another too. In order to be the church, we have to be in relationship with one another. And so God is about people, and so we should be about people too. And as I allowed God to come into that area of weakness in my own life, I felt more open to communicating with other people, and something that I felt so weak in, God started to come in and guide me and help me just simply to talk to people. That might sound crazy to some of you, but as someone who is an introvert, I think that there's obviously strengths in different personality types and weaknesses in different personality types, but our weaknesses don't have to confine us, and so they don't have to limit us. And I just wanted to share that with you in case you have a certain area where you feel weak in. Don't be discouraged by it, but rather welcome God to come in and build you up. I once heard someone say that God's not going to twist your arm to make you do something, but I do believe that God makes the unimaginable happen. There's a verse that talks about, with God all things are possible. He makes the impossible possible because I am possible. That is who God is. And the story that I'm reminded of is one that I think a lot of us have heard of before, and that's the story of David and Goliath. And I think of that story because, David being out in the field, a shepherd, just a young boy who is, I don't really know the proper shepherding terms, but he was out in the field taking care of animals, just doing his daily tasks that he did. I don't think anyone expected him to be used to be facing a giant that seemed impossible to go up against, but it was David's willingness to say yes because he was sure of the strength that God had imparted into him that made that story possible. That God took David, who didn't seem like the most adequate person to do it, but imparted His strength into him to then come in and kill this giant that everyone else was scared to take down. And so I think in the figurative sense, when we are facing giants in our lives, we can ask God to impart His strength into us so that we can be overcomers, so that we can step into situations that seem impossible. Just wanted to encourage you with that today, in case you might feel down on yourself sometimes because of something that you feel weak in. Don't be consumed with your limitation. It is more about God's ability than it is about ours. And so I hope that this is able to encourage you today. I love you guys so much. Remember that your identity is defined by God's truth, not in the opinions of others, and not even in your own opinion of yourself. Continue to fill yourself with God's truth so that when lies come against you, so that when doubt arises, that you can remain sure in what God says about you. You're so dearly loved. Have a blessed day, and remember that your worth is far above rubies. Bye, y'all.